Greetings! In addition to those mentioned by the previous reporter relative to the matters to consider in the investigation of unexplained wealth, we also have to take into account the bank records where the subject has contracted loans. As loans are one of the legal sources of income, these documents reflect transactions which may explain sources behind acquired properties and funding of business ventures if there's any. With these records along with saving and time deposits and current accounts as an exception to the application of the Secrecy of Bank Deposit Act RA 1405, investigators will be able to review the suspect's bank balances at the start of the period. Since the money contained in these accounts was available for him or her to spend, that means investigators may use these bank or mobile money statements, invoices, and other documents to gather information about the suspect's use of funds during that period, including, for example, purchasing assets, paying property rental or bills, repaying loans, employing staff, or taking holidays. It also includes the suspect bank balances at the end of the selected period, as these reflect money he had not yet spent but still had available to spend. Other application may involve the purchase of crypto assets which can be kept in a self-custody wallet or with a third party such as a cryptocurrency exchange. All of these documents and other relevant evidence can contain vital clues that assist in tracing illicit flows of money and reveal further suspects in the individual's corrupt network. However, pursuant to RA 1405 or the Bank Secrecy Law, under this law, all deposits are strictly confidential and may not be inquired or looked into except on the following grounds: upon permission of the depositor, in cases of impeachment, upon order of the competent court in cases of bribery and dereliction of duty, and in cases where the money deposited or invested is the subject matter of litigation. So that means a court order or written permission by the person of interest is required when inquiring about bank records or accounts. Interviews the person who can give information as to the property of subject, their sources, whereabouts, costs, etc. Interviewer can collect valuable insight from discussion with witnesses. Interviews can provide background information of the events leading to fraud, the context investigators required to interpret data, information, and document obtained throughout the investigation, and new leads to further the investigation. When it comes to unexplained wealth, relatives, neighbors, automotive companies, business employees play significant role to fact-finding investigation. So it is important to be mindful of the type of interviewee and select the appropriate techniques to reach the goals of the interview. Each jurisdiction has its own set of laws and regulations applicable to recording an interview, especially regarding video or audio recording. The general rule and best practice are that an interviewer obtain consent for any types of technically enabled recording from the interviewee. Often, contemporaneous note-taking is the most effective and easiest way to capture an interview. Taking notes is conducive to an efficient interview as it does not subject the interviewee to additional psychological stress or anxiety. It is important to capture questions and answers as fully as possible, as small details within responses may be significant. If an interview team consists of 2 people, it is good practice to have one person solely responsible for leading the interview and the other responsible for taking notes. The lead interviewer may fully concentrate on the interview itself. Depending on the circumstances, it can be good practice to give the interviewee an opportunity to read the notes and correct any mistakes, omissions, or inaccuracy. Interviews provide another layer of information for the investigation of unexplained wealth, complementing the information obtained from books and records. accounting system, or corporate communication. In some cases, interviews of key witnesses guide the investigators toward new documentary evidence or draw a more complete pictures of events. However, to be an effective and efficient tool for investigation, interviews requires a great deal of planning and preparation. Even more importantly, they require an interviewer with the appropriate level or skill obtained through specialized training, study, observation, and practical experience. Follow up all needs, appearing in all the records and the documents secured as to subject assets and liabilities, and other is indicated by the peculiar circumstances of the case. This may include other property records. As mentioned, the primary source of information on the property and other assets of public officials is stated of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALN. Another are other business and income records. The primary source of information on the income of public officials is the certificate of yearly compensation, allowances, and other benefits which may be provided by the accounting office of the public officials agency. In addition, records from the Bureau of Internal Revenue are secured particularly to determine whether the public official and his or her family members have other legitimate business. Another are expenditure records and lifestyle checks. It is equally important to determine other expenses of the public official aside from the assets which he or she had acquired. Hence, investigators also secure documents pertaining to the public official's travels, expenses for schooling of his or her children, and other costs of living. And lastly, records of liabilities to check the truthfulness and accuracy of the liabilities declared in the public official's SALIN. Records of loans are secured from the Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS, Social Security System, or SSS, and Home Mutual Development Fund, or PAG-IBIG. It should be noted that once the loan is verified, the amount of the same is treated as an additional source of income for the public official. However, the amount spent by the public official is the payment of such loans is treated as expenditure. Lastly, we have explanation of the subject if he so elects. This is self-explanatory. An investigator should always allow the subject to speak, listen attentively, observe changes in behavior, and direct subsequent questioning on the areas where the changes has been noticed. The outcome of the interview with subject, however, depends on the ability of the interviewer to control his process. Interviewer maintain control by using appropriate questioning and communication techniques at appropriate points within the interview. Although the main weapon of an interviewer is questioning, it is equally important for him or her to be able to listen attentively. If the interviewer is unable or unwilling to pay attention to the interviewee over a prolonged period, he will not be able to notice subtle changes in the interviewee's behavior or the subject statement inconsistency. It is also essential for the interviewers to establish a rapport at the outset of the interview. Once a rapport has been established, it is much more difficult for an interviewee to deceive and easier for the interviewer to notice signs of deception. Establishing a rapport within a limited time frame of an interviewee requires a degree of emotional intelligence and flexibility on the part of the investigator.